You just heard the verdict there. The High Court in Pretoria, which is expected to hand down that judgment in President Jacob Zuma's application to review and set aside the former public protector's report. Let's go to our reporter, Sipho Stierman in court. A very good morning to you, Sipho. Can you tell us what came out of that verdict?
Well, good morning to you and our viewers at home. Indeed, it's a very busy day here in court, Court 60 in the Pretoria Gauteng High Court, where the first ruling, of course, was on whether the President, Jacob Zuma, is liable for costs in last year's interdict application that he had filed to try and stop Thuli Madonsela's state of capture report from being released. Of course, we now know that he later withdrew that application, but we know that opposition parties, EFF, UDM, came on board to apply that the President be held personally liable for those costs in the sense that he used the court's the legal system to try and protect his personal interest, and that it was not in the execution of his duties. And to that end, I do have the EFF here with me while we're on interval waiting for the second judgment to talk to us about just react to the news today, the judgment. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Gadi. Just your reaction to this. You brought the application along with other parties, and you've been granted. The President has been asked to pay personally.
Well, the EFF welcomes the damning judgment by the court against Mr. Zuma. It has once more confirmed that Mr. Zuma is a constitutional delinquent, at least this time a gross constitutional delinquent of objectionable conduct, who has of a conduct that is not acceptable and not a litigant who's very serious but frivolous and vexatious.
Do you think generally with this ruling it's going to send a message to the rest of cabinet members that often go or pursue these indefensible legal matters? Do you think it's going to send a strong message?
Definitely. The High Court confirmed a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment in this particular regard, that at a certain point in time public officials and politicians in particular should be held personally liable for defending the indefensible in litigations against citizens where they are found wanting in their own constitutional obligations.
And then, of course, now we are at 11:30. We're expecting the second judgment on the review application. What are your expectations?
Well, we should leave that to the court. We can prejudge and predetermine what the court will say. We should actually respect the court's proceedings and look forward to a very interesting judgment.
And also, if you can just talk to us, we know that last week the President was also, stopped, or there was an order to stop him from appointing an NPA head. And now this is happening where he's asked to personally pay costs for the interdict last year. What do you think this says about the conduct of the President?
Well, we have always said as the economic freedom fighters that the President is a constitutional delinquent and not very serious of a questionable conduct, who should actually not be a head of state, who should not address the honorable house in parliament, who should actually not preside in anything that has got to do with the state. He can continue being the president of the ruling party, but definitely not of the country. It's an embarrassment and is humiliating the country in the international.
And then some of the criticism that always comes through is that opposition parties are using the court system to run the country. What do you have to say to that?
Well, we do not only come to court as a first point of instance, but we do go to the street. We have been marching throughout South Africa. We have argued these issues in portfolio committees, and we have argued these matters in the National Assembly. As and when all reasonable options have been exhausted, the Constitution provides that the final arbiter in all disputes shall be the courts.
All right, well, thank you. That's EFF Secretary General Godrich Gadi talking to us, reacting to the ruling here that President Zuma should personally pay the costs of the legal costs, rather, of last year's interdict that he had put through the court to try and stop the release of the public protector's report. Of course, we know he later withdrew, and now at 11:30 we will then expect a second judgment which will deal with the matter of the President filing an application to review the remedial actions of public protector's state of capture report, particularly the aspect where the public protector says he must appoint a chief justice to head up a judge that would head up the state of capture inquiry, and the President objected to that, saying that the public protector is encroaching on the principle of separation of powers. So we shall await and see on the second round, and that is the second judgment on what the judges will have to say. But certainly, it's been a rough day for the president in terms of ruling number 1, where he's been asked to pay the legal fees. It's now back to in studio.
Sipho Stierman, thank you so much for that report. By 11:30, they will convene again. Take 2 in that court case. Now, the High Court in Pretoria, you just heard it, has ruled that the President Jacob Zuma must be held personally liable for the legal cost in the litigation costs for trying to stop the release of the State of Capture report.